particular segment because people get upset with me when I do great stuff and don't record it. Dave Milner, I'm talking about you. Tonight, in this first segment, I'm talking to you about the fact that we are all Marxists now. And some of you all, in your pride, will sit back and say, "Oh no, I'm not. I ain't. Joe Biden's not my president. Oh no, he ain't. Mattress Harris, she's not my vice president. Nancy Pelosi, she's not my Speaker of the House. Chucky Schumer, he's not my majority Senate leader. Oh no, Chief Roberts, he's not my Supreme Court leader. Oh no." Stop the madness tonight. Stop the madness tonight. We are all Marxists now. We're Marxists because we've had establishment leaders who forgot that they were servant leaders. You see, when they came to Washington, it became more important for them to maintain power and control and to be an opposition party. Opposition to what when you become corrupted like the party that you so wish to offend that is even more so corrupted than you? Yes, I'm talking about the Republicans in name only, the Liz Cheney group. Yeah, there are 10 Republicans that voted for the impeachment of the President of the United States regarding the whole concept of incitement to riot on Capitol Hill. The president never incited anything. And his speech also projected the desire for men and women to go assure themselves the right to assemble peaceably and encourage their congressmen to do the right thing. But that's not what the rhinos and the Marxists, well, the rhinos are Marxists too at this point. When you can vote for impeachment of someone that you never jury trialed, you never even looked at evidence, that you just hearsay emotionally upset because your parliament, your royal court, oh my God, someone crashed a window in my royal court. And some of you all are sitting back tonight and saying, "Ken, but 2 people were killed, the police officer and Miss Ashley Babbitt. They were killed, Ken. You don't have any soul. You don't understand the importance of this night." Let me just say to those lives that were lost, to their families, to their friends, to their many other loved ones, we at TECN TV extend our most sincere condolences. We applaud the officer who stood as a testament to his service to our country and to the people on Capitol Hill. And we stand with the young woman, 14 years Air Force veteran, who decided to go to Washington to uphold her First Amendment rights, to protest, and to get a message to the people inside Capitol Hill. However, as founder, chairman, and president of TECN TV, I will never go as low as those like Kevin McCarthy and all my other right-wing media cohorts to apologize and condemn the violence. Yeah, you heard me. I'm not condemning it. I want you to understand something, ladies and gentlemen. There were instigators to that violence. There may have been even an entrapment of those individuals to come into the U.S. Capitol by certain members of the Capitol security. They were waving people in to the U.S. Capitol, despite the fact that there was an order not to allow anyone in during the entire time that they were doing the Electoral College vote. Something was askew, either by mistake or by plan. Something was askew to have allowed people onto the steps of the U.S. Capitol and into the building itself. And there's video of people waving certain individuals in. I don't condemn the violence, ladies and gentlemen, because violence has been the accepted form of negotiating legislatively and politically in the United States since the death of George Floyd. For a whole summer, ladies and gentlemen, we heard people say to the world, what difference does it make you burning down $2 billion worth of property? Property can be replaced. Remember now, it's the U.S. Capitol building. Glasses can be replaced, now can't they? The lives of individuals cannot. Just like the life of the young girl who was shot in Atlanta, Georgia by Black Lives Matter advocates. In protest, of course. Or the other 21 people that have died or that died during the Summer of Peace for protests throughout America, including 2 in Seattle's Chas. What difference does it make that the U.S. Capitol building was attested with such protests, either instigated or otherwise? The difference is this. There are those who believe that their ruling house, no, not the people's house, as our founders initiated the U.S. Capitol and the U.S. House of Representatives to be. No, not the people's house, but their home. You see, that is where the merchants have been eerily and dastardly dealing with the affairs of the American states. You see, they are the ones who can find billions of dollars for gender studies in Pakistan. They are the ones who can easily find money to give to foreign nations around the world. They are the ones who can find a way to make it difficult to build a wall to keep people from extraneously coming into our country. You see, they are the ones who have been working for 9 months to stop a stimulus payment from coming to the United States. And at the time that they gave themselves a $60,000 raise in the same 5,500 page bill that they passed in the middle of the night, they gave you some chump change, $600. Oh, what? Hold up. This is, what? 1 Benjamin, 2 Benjamin, 3 Benjamin, 4 Benjamin, 5 Benjamin, 6 Benjamin. Oh, spend that on your mortgage. You know, the mortgage that you've been unable to pay since February because we were only going to have 2 weeks of COVID, ladies and gentlemen. 2 weeks. And then you can get back to normal. And then the governors became their own itinerant tyrants, shutting down businesses as non-essential, but expecting you to pay the full fee for the business and licensing that you do. The same people that told you as soon as we get a vaccine, we're going to give it out to every American, now fight over who gets it first. Do the politicians get it first? Do the criminals get it first? Do the labor unions get it first? Do the teachers union get it first? Oh, wait a minute. Do the first responders get it? They can wait. I want to start this evening, ladies and gentlemen, with this pic that my executive producer sent me right before the show. And I love it when she sends me stuff because it makes me look good. This is a picture of George Soros, and this is his quote from September 2014 in a speech that he was delivering in Germany. He said, "I'm going to bring down the United States by funding black hate groups. We will put them into a mental trap. and make them blame the white people, the black communities are the easiest to manipulate. And I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, without a shadow of a doubt, George Soros is smiling tonight because for the easy price of maybe a dime, he has ushered in Marxism. And Muriel Bowser, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, as well as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, are ushering in communism onto the steps of Washington, D.C. Why, for the first time, do we need 30,000 troops in Washington, D.C.? You don't need 30,000 troops. You don't need 10,000 soldiers. You don't need 5,000 soldiers. But Ken, you don't understand. They're going to try to break into the home and break into the Capitol, and the Capitol's important. Yeah, but what about Joe Blow's business in Philadelphia that's been shut down because it's non-essential? What about the restaurants that have been teetering on literal destruction and catastrophe because mayors and governors have decided on-off switches for when 20% of people can go in, or 50%, or maybe nobody this week? Ladies and gentlemen, George Soros was right. And now we are all Marxists. Can I give you a quote? For those of you following along at home, I just want to give you a quote. Dave Miller's in the chat room. Love you, Dave. Dave Miller says, nothing was askew. It was a planned incident from the left to take advantage of. You're right. You're right, Dave. But there are too many people in America who are listening to the quote-unquote right-wing media, along with the left-wing media, apologizing for what took place. Tonight I'm going to tell you exactly why it took place, why I'm not condemning the violence, and why I set myself up for your persecution. I don't mind. It's my opinion. But in a condemned society, a corrupt society, my opinion really doesn't count, now does it? Only the opinion of someone in power. I want you to listen to someone who was in power, ladies and gentlemen. The weak rhino, Kevin McCarthy, who should be primaried starting now.
Thank you, gentlemen, for yielding. Madam Speaker, let me be clear. Last week's violent attack on the Capitol was undemocratic, un-American, and criminal. Violence is never a legitimate form of protest. Freedom of speech and assembly under the Constitution is rooted in nonviolence. Yet the violent mob that descended upon this body was neither peaceful nor democratic. It acted to disrupt Congress's constitutional responsibility. It was also an attack on the people who work in this institution, members, staff, and the hundreds who work behind the scenes so that we can serve the American people.
I want you to see here that what this incitement is really about has nothing to do with you, Mr. and Mrs. American person, since we can't say male or female. It's all about going after you. You see, what they're doing here in this impeachment has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Whether Donald Trump runs again or not, he still has nearly 80 million Americans that are in agreement with him. You see, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin McCarthy sounds a whole lot like Nancy Pelosi. They're concerned about their parliament, their royal court, and how you, simpleton Americans, have obstructed their sacred building, the one that you pay for out of your taxes, even when you're getting unemployment checks. Yeah, you people. That condescension is the reason why you have violence.
The greatest statesman in the history of our country understood that the most dangerous threat to freedom is lawlessness. A young lawyer named Abraham Lincoln famously said, "There is no grievance that is a fit object of redress by mob law." Yet for several hours last week, mob law tried to interfere with constitutional law. Some say the riots were caused by Antifa. There is absolutely no evidence of that.
Kevin, you're wrong. In fact, a Black Lives Matters member who was provoking and instigating at the very doors of the Capitol was arrested. And there's evidence that Antifa was involved, and including the fact that Antifa sent out messaging on social media to come back to Washington, D.C. and your state capitals for armed resistance. You see, Kevin, you're part of the problem. You are part of the communist narrative in Washington, D.C.
And conservatives should be the first to say so. Conservatives also know that the only thing that stops mob violence is to meet it with force rooted in justice and backed by moral courage. And last week we saw mob violence.
Excuse me, Kevin. What justice has prevailed in the United States for Donald Trump, who was impeached in the House for nary a reason justifiable? And in addition to that, how's that Spygate thing coming with Obama, who was involved in personally spying on Donald Trump's campaign? When is the first criminal charge coming out of that, Kevin? Probably never, because you and Chucky and Nancy and Mitch, oh no, y'all wouldn't want that to happen. Because in Discovery, we might find out that maybe you all were part of that cover-up. But please continue.
Met by courage, sacrifice, and heroism from the brave men and women who protect this institution every day. But for the bravery of the Capitol Police, the destruction and loss could have been much greater. We owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude. The loss of Officer Brian Sednick and Officer Howard Lindmegood is tragic and heartbreaking. We mourn their loss, remember their lives, and continue to pray for their families and loved ones.
Indeed, we do. However, a police officer who kills himself through suicide could not possibly be the reasonable evidence of inciting violence, now could it? How is it that the right and the left align the suicide of a police officer to an event that happened days earlier? Do they know the mind of the person who killed himself? Is there a note somewhere that says, because of the violence that took place, I must kill myself? No. It's an extravagant and luxurious approach to condemning not the violence, but condemning the conservative movement and all of those who voted for Donald Trump. Yes, Kevin McCarthy, who prevailed because of Donald Trump, now condemns him. Because you know what? Donald will be gone soon. Kevin keeps riding the train to Mecca.
The officers of the Capitol Police deserve our eternal thanks. We will never forget the dangers they faced, the determination they showed, or the sacrifices they made. And make no mistake, those who are responsible for Wednesday's chaos will be brought to justice. Which brings me to today's debate. I believe impeaching the president in such a short time frame would be a mistake. No investigations have been completed. No hearings have been held. What's more, the Senate has confirmed that no trial will begin until after President-elect Biden is sworn in. But here is what a vote to impeach would do. A vote to impeach would further divide this nation. A vote to impeach will further fan the flames of partisan division. Most Americans want neither inaction nor retribution. They want durable, bipartisan justice. That path is still available, but is not the path we are on today. That doesn't mean the president is free from fault. The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding.
Now think about that, ladies and gentlemen of great reason. You blame grandma because the children got up into the cabinets and took down the cookies and ate them. Grandma is the problem here. Grandma should have condemned immediately the children taking the cookies. Grandma is the one who is virtually condoning and inciting them to take the cookies by not being in the area with them. Do you understand the lunacy that these individuals want you to believe in order to satisfy you for not just impeachment, but even possibly censorship? Kevin McCarthy is part of the Marxist establishment on Capitol Hill. Make no mistake. In addition, have you ever heard of such a thing as bipartisan justice? I thought justice existed without bipartisanship or partisanship. Justice is blind, or it used to be. Now there's such a thing as social justice, which requires bipartisanship, acceptance. Listen to these individuals who represent you and tell me, is it Donald Trump's fault or is it them?
These facts require immediate action by President Trump. Accept his share of responsibility, quell the brewing unrest, and ensure President-elect Biden is able to successfully begin his term. And the president's immediate action also deserves congressional action, which is why I think a fact-finding commission and a censure resolution would be prudent. Unfortunately, that is not where we are today. Truly, this past week was one of the most difficult for Congress and our nation. Of all the days here, last Wednesday was the worst day I've ever seen in Congress. Our country is deeply hurt.
He also said 9/11 was the worst day, but you know, why quibble on facts?
So where do we go from here? After all the violence and chaos of the last week, is it important to remember that we are still here to deliver a better future for all Americans. It does not matter if you are liberal, moderate, or conservative. All of us must resist the temptation of further polarization. Instead, we must unite once again as Americans. I understand for some this call for unity may ring hollow. But times like these are when we must remember who we are as Americans and what we as a nation stand for. And as history shows, unity is not an option, it's a necessity. It is as necessary today as it was at the start of our country.
Wait a minute. Wasn't the start of our country by insurrection? Wait a minute. Didn't Seattle and Portland and Dallas and even the mayor of the District of Columbia pay with government funds to paint Black Lives Matter on 16th Street Northwest? Isn't that insurrection? It's amazing what violence is acceptable to the congressional leaders and what violence isn't acceptable. It appears when the left destabilizes America, that's acceptable violence. However, when the right through righteous indignation and hostile address of their matters that have not been redressed by Congress, they need to be condemned. They need to be chastised. They need to be locked up. They need to be put in prison.
I want us all to think back to how John Adams and the Federalist Party handed power over to Thomas Jefferson and his party after the election of 1800.
You're putz. Never mind.
Ever. Partisans used every dirty trick in the book. They demonized each other, dismissed reasonable dissent, and described their opponents as seditious. Sound familiar? The election of 1800 could have destroyed our young nation. But instead of breaking us, it helped us bring us together, thereby preserving the world's last best hope of freedom. After a hard-fought battle over the Electoral College in Congress, Adams conceded. And a peaceful transfer of power, the first in American history, took place. Jefferson, for his part, put aside the division of the era and preached forgiveness, yes, unity. In his first inaugural address, he famously said, "Every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle." Jefferson and Adams did not end every difference of opinion that existed in America, nor did they try. In a free country as big and diverse as ours, that would be impossible. What they did was more important. They recognized a deeper unity, a unity rooted in the famous proposition both men helped to write. At a critical moment in history, our founders chose peace, liberty, partnership over tension, division, and partisanship. For the sake of our country.
Once again, in 1776, after going through decades of British oppression, did our founding fathers sit down with the Native Americans and do a kumbaya dance around the flames of a fire and say, you know what, we must be peaceful. Peace only comes through weakness. Nah, I don't think so.
We must make the exact same choice. We have already begun. Last week, despite the lingering shock and amid the windows still broken, we did what all healthy democracies do. We debated and we voted. In this country, we solve our disputes at the ballot box and through debates and votes on the floor of this exact chamber. We did our duty then, and we must do more. The eyes of the nation and the world are upon us. We must seize this opportunity and heal and grow stronger. As leaders, our place in history depends on whether we call on our better angels and refocus our efforts to work directly for the American people. United, we can deliver peace, strength, and prosperity our country desperately needs. Divided, we will fail.
Kevin, who runs the House? Kevin, who runs the Senate? Kevin, who's about to be inaugurated? Kevin, tie your shoes. All things that you don't seemingly understand how took place. You are in the midst of a Marxist coup of America, and still you propel this idea, this fabulous idea that if we kumbaya together, if we would just hug one another, gosh darn it, hold on to a tree too, guess what? There will be peace. I'm sorry. There is no peace through weakness.
What we saw last week was not the American way. Neither is the continued rhetoric that Joe Biden is not the legitimate president. Let's be clear. Joe Biden will be sworn in as President of the United States in 1 week.
Joe Biden is not the legitimate president of the United States of America. I said it. YouTube will probably take this down tonight. Joe Biden is not the legitimate president of the United States of America. Kamala Harris, who was once Indian but is now black, is not the legitimate vice president of the United States. I suggest you check this out with Italy. I suggest you check this out with China. I suggest you check this out with Germany. I suggest you check this out with France and Great Britain. You will understand that there is no doggone way 120% of the people of Detroit voted for Joe Biden. No doggone way. But let's not quibble on facts. Kevin, tie your shoes.
Because he won the election. And the presidency and this Congress will face immediate challenges that must be addressed. I stand ready to assist in that effort with good faith, goodwill, and an open hand. The United States remains exceptional. We remain extraordinary. In the coming weeks and months, we must work together, all of us.
Kevin, do you have impeachment papers put together for Kamala Harris, as well as Kamala Harris for raising funds to get rid of domestic terrorists out of jails, and Joe Biden for the treasonous acts of bribery he's taken from the Communist Chinese Republic and the party? I'm quite certain you should be more angry and hostile against those two than certainly your own Donald Trump, right? Because they actually committed a crime. What you're accusing Donald Trump of is hocus pocus. That somehow he's the most dangerous man in America. Right now, Kevin, you are the most dangerous man in America.
To recharge the light of our shining city on the hill. History has shown us a way. History has given us a path. Just as Adams and Jefferson has shown, now is the moment that we should do the exact same. In these trying times, may God continue to bless America. And let's chart a course that history will repeat, but not what's happening today. I yield back.
Kevin is a jerk. He is what is made of men and women who forged the whole concept that they shall represent the American people until they get off the airplane at Reagan National Airport. Once they get off the plane and take the cab past Kennedy Center, all of those things change. They actually speak from a floor in which Cori Bush, the representative from St. Louis, actually accused the President of the United States of America of being a white supremacist in chief. And Kevin is speaking about unity? Well, clutch the pearls, Kevin. You see, it's individuals like you who have tried to dance the rainbow of magic around the American people while prescribing to the quite fanciful antidote to everything that America is. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By forging a direction by which a Marxist takeover of our country has taken place, and you, my friend, are too weak to fight it. In fact, you're feeling very comfortable right here. This is where Republicans love to be. We love to be number two. Yes, you are all a piece of number two. Except for the ones who really, really fight for justice. And then you have Mitch McConnell, who says, I'm thinking about voting for a conviction. If these men and women convict a president on the mere hearsay of speech, do you understand what they're trying to say to you? It's not about Donald Trump. It's about you. It is the end of free speech. If you're not watching it on Facebook, if you're not watching it on Twitter, then you've been blind for all these years. But that's okay. Marxism does a good job of blinding people. In fact, let me put this way, and then we probably won't have too many commercials tonight. I've been gone for a while. I want to go over something with you, just briefly, because a lot of people say, you know, have you ever read Karl Marx's books, Das Kapital? Have you ever read it? Well, that's a trick question. You can't read just one Das Kapital. There are 3 volumes. So don't play the rainbow game with me. But Ronald Reagan made a speech at the Orange County Press Club in 1961. It was entitled Encroaching Control. He alleged that 3 months before his last visit to this country, Nikita Khrushchev said, "We can't expect the American people to jump from capitalism to communism, but we can assist their elected leaders in giving them small doses of socialism until they awaken one day to find they have communism." You see, the antidote to communism is large doses of patriotism. But Kevin McCarthy spent 10 minutes on the House floor giving Americans small doses of socialism. Kumbaya. I want you to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that you have been betwixt, hoodwinked, bamboozled. Because Marxism is not merely something that happens in the classroom. Marxism is a violent sport. It is written, and you can go to the Conservapedia for this one. It says, while the Occupy Wall Street and Obama riots have failed to bring about a violent Marxist overthrow of the existing social order and governmental system, the same organizers and groups attempted again. It's the same people. It's not. Tea Party people are the same people in Trumpism. You're not different. You're seeing the same thing, and it shows up over and over again. But you know who are the great obstructionists to you, trumpets? We go with trumpets. The obstruction to you, Mr. and Mrs. Tea Party, it's your own Republican Party. Because they don't want to be put in charge of governing. They want to whine and complain that if things were different, if they were in charge, things would be so different. We would eradicate every construct that would lead us down the ivory pathway of socialism and into the hall rooms of Marxism. But do you not understand? Do you not see the same people? Hell, forgive my French, but the same people with the Weather Underground were the same people with Obama. The same people that were rooting against the people in Tiananmen Square are the same people who were rooting against those individuals who have bust down the doors of the Capitol, according to the left. You're the same people. You want freedom. You want liberty. But Kevin McCarthy and Nancy Pelosi don't want you to have that. Because it takes away their power. I digress. The same organizers and groups attempted again, this time in a nationwide coordinated effort during the 2020 leftist insurrection. Black Lives Matter, a Marxist institution, following the model of the 1960 Black Panthers, was anointed as the spearhead of revolution, with Antifa playing the supporting role of the Weather Underground. Violence, in theory, as one. An invasion of our country. Treason, condemnable to hangings. But you didn't hear anyone talk about impeaching de Blasio, or impeaching Cuomo, or impeaching Muriel Bowser, or impeaching the mayors around the country that allowed Antifa and Black Lives Matter. In fact, it was Seattle that hired a pimp to make certain that the voices of Antifa and Black Lives Matter were heard. Yeah, your tax dollar at work. Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrice Cullors assured the Real News Network when questioned about the ideological direction of the movement in a 2015 interview, myself and Alicia Garza in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on ideological theories. Can I tell you who else was a trained communist? Sit back. You're about to get a news feed, and you're going to watch it on TECN TV on Monday night, 7 o'clock. The same person that was trained as a communist as Cullors and Garcia, trained Marxists, was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. I know. Come back for the movie. You'll find out. But ladies and gentlemen, we have reached a point now where you have to make a decision. You, the American people, are going to have to make a decision. And I want to just let you all know, I love the coach that I'm about to play for you. I love Coach. I didn't get his written permission to do it, but, you know, if I suffer his indulgence, I pray so. But you got 3 choices from here on. And they don't include listening to Kevin McCarthy. You got 3 choices for those of you who don't want to live in a Marxist communist empire. You got 3 choices. You are to fight, you are to flee, or you are to cower and surrender.
On my Patreon channel over the last few weeks, months really, I've sort of been developing the idea that maybe conditions in the United States are no longer, shall we say, ideal. Yeah. And I've been telling my followers there that it's time to leave the United States. And I've been going into some great detail on this particular issue. And I'm here to say so to you publicly on my free channel, on my CRP channel. I'm telling you that it is time to leave America. Now, why is it time to leave America? Very simple. You have to face reality and recognize that the socialist communists have won. They have won in the United States. They have the mass media, they have big tech, and big tech has flexed its muscle rather spectacularly over the last few days. They have the presidency and they have both houses of Congress. Irrespective of whether you think that they won the presidency and the Senate fairly or not. That's not the point of this video. I could really care less about that particular issue insofar as this video is concerned. Insofar as this video is concerned, we have to look at reality. We have to look at things as they are, not as we would wish them to be, and not saying, oh, you know, they cheated us and, you know, it's not fair, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Life isn't fair, okay? Life isn't fair. All you can do, insofar as life is concerned, is look at it realistically and decide what you're going to do. And when you look at the United States now, realistically, it is very obvious that the socialists/communists have won. Yeah, and they're making no bones about the fact that they intend to persecute their political opponents. They're saying it outright. Their leader, Joe Biden, is saying that he is going to implement measures that are going to benefit minorities and black people and women over basically everybody else. And who's everybody else? Well, you know, male white people. It's going to be open discrimination. You know, for all this talk about systemic racism and structural racism and all this crap, Joe Biden is actually saying that that is what he's going to implement. He is going to implement structural racism, yeah? Systemic racism. This is the definition of it. When the government says that they're going to benefit one race over another, that is the definition of systemic racism. That's what he's going to do. And it's not the only thing that he's going to do. No, of course not. The Biden-Harris administration have a whole host of measures that they're going to implement. Repressive measures. It's called repressive tolerance. Look it up. Repressive tolerance is basically the notion that you cannot tolerate the intolerant. And they are, very happily purging people. And they're gleeful about it, as you can see. And they're going to purge more people. And there are going to be more indoctrination sessions at universities, at schools of different sorts, high schools, elementary schools. There's going to be indoctrination sessions in the corporate culture, in government offices.
Now, I have to pause the coach here for 1 second. And I'm going to do something that's normally not done in the theater of conservative talk. Normally people are talking at you. But I want to show you that not only am I right, not only the coach is right, but the educators are talking about the very same thing too. I want you to check how the left uses Marxism in the classroom. And you might want to rethink if you want to send your child back to a public school after you see this.
Hey, Study Crusaders, welcome back to our special Brainwashed Marxism in Schools. Let's first start off articulating how bad it is and how much of this Marxist ideology has made it into your kids' and grandkids' school curriculum. Let's start with Jonathan Butcher. He's at the Heritage Foundation, former education director at the Goldwater Institute. Jonathan, how are you, brother?
I'm great, thank you.
Good to talk to you. So, where do we start here? How bad is it? How much Marxism is in our curricula right now?
Well, it's an ongoing challenge for parents and families around the country, as well as school boards, to be watching for how their local school is being influenced. A recent example of this would come from the New York Times last summer when they released a project called the 1619 Project. And now this was something that was dedicated to the idea of rewriting history. And not only was it a segment in the New York Times Magazine, but it was also created with school curricula in mind and is now already in classrooms. So it's something that's with us all the time. It has been with parents for generations, that we have to be aware of what our students are being taught in school.
Big picture, and we'll get to some specifics in a second, but it's amazing that we're at this place now where I think most parents just take the path of least resistance, and I don't know if they assume the best or don't even think anything probably, and just drop their kids off, and I don't know, just that's the end of that. And there's very little at all parental involvement. How dangerous can that be?
Well, the pandemic is changing that as we speak. Yeah. And I think one of the things ushered in by the quarantines and the closure of physical school buildings is that now students have been home with their parents. Parents have been able to see what their students have been taught, because a lot of nearly every school around the country has had to do it online. So parents now have come front and center with their child's learning each day. And that puts them in a great opportunity. They have a great opportunity now. So when students go back, hoping that they do, they will be able to say something to a teacher, or they will be able to say something to a school about what is before their student every day. So that's.
I want you to understand, I appreciate Jonathan greatly for what he is revealing, but his analysis leads you to believe that American mothers, American fathers, after seeing what was done to Donald Trump, what was done to them as voters, are going to take their children back to the ideological centers that actually expose their children to Marxism. And so I have a question for you. It's a moral question, and then we'll get back to the coach. But here's the moral question. If you know that your children are being poisoned, do you keep taking them back to the well to drink? Pay attention to the question. If you know that your children are being poisoned, do you take them back to the well to drink? If your children are being taught Marxism in their private school, in their public school, in their charter school, in their independent school, in their Catholic school, in their Christian school, if Marxism is being taught to them as an acceptable way of life, and that America is bad and everything about their parents having totalitarian control over them and their households. It's just cruel and unusual punishment. Well, if these things are being taught to your children and you keep taking them back there, who's really destroying America? Is it those kids, those crazy kids with their crazy ideas and their Beatlemania hippie style dress and long hair? Is it them or is it you? Are you responsible for the downfall of America? While you're thinking about it, let's go back to the coach.
And it's all going to be the same message, that white people are bad, black people are good, by definition are good. Women are by definition good. Yeah, it's not that human beings can be good or bad, and sometimes both in contradictory ways. No. It's going to be this Manichaean view of people, whereby people of color and sexual minorities are by definition angels, and everybody who's not that is of necessity evil. And if you happen to be in that category of evil people, well, you're going to have to go through all kinds of struggle sessions to prove that you're not evil. And of course, you can never prove that you're not evil now, can you? You can't.
Those are called re-education camps. You already have them on your job. And they already have it in the classrooms of America. Re-education camps. In fact, New York City is talking about locking people up for being sick and not telling people. Think about how close we are to being told because we turned over our guns to our government. Think how close we are to being told to get on to the train and don't worry about bringing too much with you. Your days will be taken care of where you go. A concentration camp ain't too far from Marxists who believe that you're evil because you voted for Donald Trump.
Proven negative. And so you see how it's going to be? The Biden-Harris administration has said openly that they are going to declare war on the NRA. Yeah, because what do they intend to do? They intend to take away everybody's ability to bear arms. If they can't get rid of the Second Amendment per se, they are going to do everything in their power to make it almost impossible for somebody to have a weapon. And not only that, they're going to continue these COVID measures of control. Perhaps they're going to end the lockdown. And it seems from what Andrew Cuomo is saying that they intend to do that right quick in order to kickstart the economy, which of course would mean that the last 9.5 months of lockdowns in the United States have been political measures designed to alienate people and get them frustrated, i.e. get them voting Democrat. And that is turning to be the case. That's something that I suspected, but with Andrew Cuomo's recent declarations, it's proving to be true now, isn't it? But anyway, see, these communist socialists, they've done this before. This isn't new. This propagandizing and persecuting your political opponents and getting the media and everybody on your side in this a paroxysm of persecution. This is not new. This has happened before. It happened in Latin America. I'm from Latin America. I'm from Chile. And of course, I know my Latin American history. And I know very well how communist parties over the past century have created conditions very similar to what we're seeing in the United States that has led to a communist takeover. And the communist takeover usually ends, well, it ends like Venezuela is today. If you don't know, go look it up. Venezuela is a shithole. It's a disaster. Some very intelligent people think that it is about to suffer a catastrophic humanitarian crisis because of the communist mismanagement of that society. And that's a rich country. It's a country with oil, lots of it, And somehow these commies managed to screw it up, which, is par for the course. Because communists, they're not interested in actually bettering the country and making the individuals in the country, the people of the country, richer, healthier, happier. No, they're interested in power. And in the United States, they acquired it. And so now what you have to do as an American, as somebody living in the United States, you have to ask yourself if you want to live in a communist state. Now, a lot of people are going to say that, no, I'm going to stand and fight. I'm going to stand and fight against this. I'm not going to just run away. I'm not a coward. they're going to use that explanation. I'm not a coward. I'm going to stand up and fight these communists. But you can't. See, because the communists took over the federal government. You can't fight the federal government. Look at Waco. Waco was, I think, the best proof ever that if the federal government really wants to take you out, there's nothing you can do about it. They'll bring in the tanks and they'll slide away. They'll be able to destroy you and everything you might have built.
So here's a question for you. Why do you need 30,000 troops in Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day? When was the last time any inauguration had that many military personnel out guarding? Can't think of one, can you? Why? Because they have to flex their muscle. We've won. We won the House. We won the Senate. We won the White House. It's not a matter of how much we won by. It's not, we cheated. So, there. What difference does it make knowing how much we won by? 80 million, 20 million, it doesn't matter. We cheated and we won. And it's ours. And now all of America is Marxist. We're all Marxists now. And you shall see how powerful we are by marching our military down the street. And they will stop you from doing anything we don't want you to do. I want to let you all know something real quick, because a lot of people are not used to me going past 10 o'clock, but let me just stop and let you all know something very quickly about why they're upset with you, Mr. and Mrs. America, and why I'm not condemning what's happening. Because you can't tell me that you're going to burn down a Wendy's in Atlanta, Georgia, and that doesn't make any difference, but you crack some glass at the Capitol and we're all going to just die. There are 4 steps to communism taking over a country. 4 steps. Demoralization is the first step. It takes about 20 years for that to happen. The goal and purpose is to make a country immoral, so they cannot recognize or believe in truth when it is presented to them. Listen, I could smack the people of Guyana around with truth all day long, but they've been Marxists so long, they don't know what truth is, and they will refute the truth when it's slapped upon them. Same way with the U.S. It's taken 20 years. We've killed how many babies through abortion? Once you begin practicing the cult of Molech and Baal, you become acceptably immoral to your own. The only thing left is for the corrupt to become absolutely corrupt. And we've watched immorality become legislated over the years. And if not legislated, judicially forced upon the American people. What California says, we don't want to marry gay people. The Supreme Court says, you shall marry gay people. Demoralization is number 1. Taking God out of your life. What did the left do in February of last year? They took God out of your life. How many of you all have even been near your church? I mean, I'm not talking about, driving past the church. I'm talking about how many of you all have actually been on the grounds of your church since the pandemic began? Cricket. Number 2, destabilization. That takes about 2 to 5 years. And in America, it took less than that, because we became destabilized overnight when George Floyd was, quote unquote, killed by the police, even though that's not true. He was not killed. He overdosed himself, okay? And it was nothing at all that cop did. I don't care what Donald Trump says on that one. The cop didn't kill him. The drugs did. Destabilization, to create conditions where the tipping points for degrading society occur. And then there's a crisis, taking advantage of destabilized situations to seize power. The pandemic did that for the left. Who did they blame? They blamed Donald Trump for 250,000 people dying, even though Johns Hopkins said 2.5 million Americans would die in a year. But it was Donald Trump's fault for a virus created by the Communist Party in China. Well, oh, wait a minute. This just in. The WHO says the Chinese had nothing to do with Wuhan virus. It was done by American veterans or American military. There you go. What comes after crisis? Normalization. Success is achieved with the taking control of the governing power, authority, and ushering in a reset of the structure of governance. Ta-da! America, we're all Marxists now. 30,000 troops on the mall. The mall has been shut down. You can't walk in the People's City. The People's City has been closed off by the people's representatives. And Donald Trump, the champion, who pointed out all of the corruption, showed it to you in black and white, and you forbade it, and even began apologizing for those people who have been disruptive. Do you understand why they are afraid of you, conservatives? And yet you're sitting there cowering, talking about, I don't know what I'm going to do when Twitter goes off and I can't be on it. They're scared of you because you destabilized their central command center, the U.S. House of Representatives and Congress. You did something Black Lives Matter and Antifa didn't even dream of. You said, we will take our country back. Let's go back to the coach and see what the coach has to say.
And get away with it, which they did. In Waco, yeah, they might have like jailed somebody or other. I actually don't know. I don't remember the specifics of that, but I remember when it happened. And I remember what it meant back in '94 when I saw it happen. And what it meant was that, see, if the federal government turns on you and decides that you are the enemy, there is nothing for you to do about it. They're going to get you by fair means or foul. And if they can't get you legally, then they will go and burn you and your house down because they've done it. A couple of years ago on Zero Hedge, there was some analyst who was saying that the United States was a turnkey totalitarian state. What does that mean? It means that, a turnkey property is a property that's good to go. It has everything. It's got beddings, it's got furniture, it's got cutlery, it's got cooking stuff. It's ready. You just move in, turn the key, and in you go, and you're living in it. A turnkey totalitarian state, well, that's what the United States was, according to this analyst. A state such that if a bad actor took control of it, he wouldn't have to do much to have all the tools of a totalitarian state. Media control, a compliant military willing to do whatever was ordered, the ability, the power to persecute any enemy. And we are seeing it now. The leftists, the Democrats, the people who are going to be in power, they have said openly that they plan to persecute their political opponents. Anybody who disagrees with them. Presumably, the 74 million people who voted for Joe Biden's opponent. Yeah, they're going to persecute them. And so I'm here to tell you, probably nobody else will, but I am here to tell you, if you are an American, if you are living in the United States, now is the time to go. If you value your freedom, now is the time to go. Do you know the period in history in which we are living? This fool Schwarzenegger claimed that the events of January 6th were Kristallnacht. He's an idiot. He doesn't know history. No. It wasn't Kristallnacht. The events of January 6th were like the Reichstag fire. A very ambiguous event that was used by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party to pass a whole bunch of domestic terrorism laws. That's right. Look it up. You don't have to take my word for it. Look it up. Even on Wikipedia, which is busy suppressing news and information and history, because it is, even on Wikipedia you can find the entry on the laws that were passed after the Reichstag fire. They were all about domestic terrorists. They were all about suppressing domestic terrorism.
Ladies and gentlemen who voted for Donald Trump, guess what you are to Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, Liz Cheney, Murkowski. Guess what you are to them? You're a terrorist. Talking about a country where the first real terrorist organization was created by the Democrats, called the Ku Klux Klan, which later grew on to become Antifa and Black Lives Matter, a party that has a practice of creating terrorism, now says that you are the terrorists. Guess what's going to happen to you, my friend? You and me, especially me. I have a conservative television network in the inner city.
Suppressing, in the case of the Nazis, the communists, trade unions, Jews. It was about suppression of people. The events of January 6th are going to be used to pass a whole host of draconian measures, very similar to the Patriot Act. This domestic terrorism bill already exists, and it's existed among Democratic circles for quite some time. And now they have the perfect opportunity to pass it. As soon as Joe Biden is installed as president on January 20th, on January 21st, they are going to put that bill to the vote. And the Democrats, i.e. the socialists/communists, they have the votes to pass it, and they will. And this domestic terrorism bill will be a bill that will deliberately undermine the civil rights that you hold so dear. And there will be nothing that you can do about it, about this rollback of your civil liberties. Do you know why? Because they control, they won, they have the power. And so they are going to roll back your rights that your forefathers fought so bravely for. They're going to roll them back, and there is nothing that you can do about it. And if you try to stand up and resist this, you will be declared a terrorist, a domestic terrorist, and you will have no rights. And you will be snatched up in some extra-legal, extrajudicial process and tossed into some jail somewhere where you will rot. And that's if you're lucky. And if you're not lucky, you're going to burn, like the people at Waco did. Like the people who have ever tried to fight the federal government. It's a turnkey totalitarian state. And the crazies have picked up the keys. That's the problem. And you think that AOC and the squad are kind of like the outliers. No. They're the mainstream of their insanity. And they're going to push it in every avenue of American life. So what can you do?
What exactly can you do when you know now that the constitutional originalists on the Supreme Court refused to hear a case where the states stated that fraud corrupted the federal presidential election, which impacts them directly? When Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito were fighting all the other members of the Supreme Court, saying that we must hear this case. We must hear the truth. And Chief Justice Roberts said, to hell with you. To hell with those gosh darn trumpets. I hope they die. Well, he didn't actually say that, but virtually, it's kind of like saying that. Because the Democrat, communists, Marxist, socialists have a list of all the people that voted for Donald Trump, including me. Big tech, Facebook and Twitter, lost $51 billion in a couple of days. Do you think Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg are crying? No, because of two things. One, it's just money. I can get that back another way. I'll find another way to get it back. Two, conservatives just can't stop advertising on Twitter and Facebook, even when they're being rejected by Twitter and Facebook. Conservatives can't let it go. I need to hold on. And the leg is being dragged. They're being dragged. And it's like, I can't let go of Facebook. I can't let go of Twitter. They love me. I know they love me. You only got three choices, America. They're very true and very clear. We're going to go to a break before we bring on my very good friend, Dave Milner, English Defense League. You can find him on shrmedia.com and also Blog Talk Radio on Sundays at 3:30 with Jeff Mitchell. But you only got three choices, America. Let me make it very plain for you before we go from here. And I'll pick this up a different day. No worries. No worries. But I hope that you come back on Sunday night at 7 p.m. because, forgive me, not Sunday night. It's Monday night at 7 p.m. Monday night at 7 p.m. we're going to play two movies. Number one will be the documentary on Marxism. It's Marxist Lucifer King. Something. I'll come up with a title when we come back, but it's about Dr. King being a communist sympathizer and rogue advocate for the seeds that were buried in the earth with the Marxist movement and then grown up to today where you have Black Lives Matter and Antifa. You're going to see it. But there are only three things that you got left to do. And we'll talk about this on a different day. Because we're all Marxists now. It's kind of like when you are on the West German side and you want to, on the East German side and you want to jump the fence so you can go to West Germany for freedom. We only got three choices here. Because it's going to get bad. It's going to get real bad. Three choices, America, for the next 2 years. One, cower and surrender like Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell and the rest of the GOP establishment and bow to your new master. Because if that is the case, you'll never get this country back. Never. Don't even talk about we're going to regroup and vote. You'll never get it back. Number two, stay and fight. If you stay and fight, you're going to be identified as a domestic terrorist and a threat to the nation. And there will be a heavy price to pay. Don't tell me that we got so many strong folk. 80 million people voted for Donald Trump, but I didn't see 80 million people come out. Didn't see it. Didn't see it. Or find another place. Guess what? Elon Musk is trying to find Mars. Jeff Bezos is trying to find the moon. You, Mr. and Mrs. America, may be soon trying to find a real America. Listen, we'll be right back with more of the best right after these messages. Thanks for hanging in there with me.